Hello, brave souls. Today we share about being raised by a narcissist. Narcissism is when someone has too much love for themselves and acts selfishly, often hurting the people around them, especially their children. Dr. Seth Meyers explains that narcissism affects how someone behaves in relationships and in families. He talks about how children of narcissistic parents face a lot of challenges because of their parents' behavior. Dr. Meyers also says it's important to understand narcissists well to deal with them better. He mentions that these traits can be passed down from parents to children, but people can break this cycle by getting help and becoming more self-aware.
So narcissism is a personality disorder. The official name is Narcissistic Personality Disorder. It involves a few central criteria.
Okay.
An overinflated, overt sense of the self. It involves lack of empathy at times with others. It involves a difficulty in relationships. So there are several things involved in that. Here's what's most important, though, with understanding a narcissist. A narcissist is not who they appear to be on the surface. Think about it like an astrological sign of a Gemini, right? There's two selves. That is who the narcissist is. So who the narcissist tries to appear to be on the surface. The image they try to sell to the public and to themselves, and then there is their underlying true self. Now, of course, anybody who really likes themselves, loves themselves, isn't going to be so hell-bent on proving to the world how great they are, how superior they are. So clearly, what they don't know is they're so much more transparent in some ways than they know. So there's the two selves. There's the false self, which is the self they try to sell to the world, and there's the real self, which is how they really feel. And deep down, there is an insecurity, a feeling that there's only enough love and attention, enough accolades to go around. So it's a bit of a chess game. You must do what you can to make sure you get as much attention as possible.
Got it.
Good love relationships are about feeling close, sharing your feelings, and helping each other. Both people in a happy relationship are okay with showing their feelings and care more about being close than being the boss. It's important to know how to be together and also how to be okay doing things on your own.
Now, before we talk about the implications with having parents who are narcissists, let's first talk about what a healthy romantic relationship looks like.
So a romantic relationship between two adults involves emotional intimacy. Now, to have emotional intimacy, what do you need? Vulnerability. You need to be able to say, I show parts of myself that even I may not like or be comfortable with. I admit feelings of weakness, feelings of uncertainty. I depend on someone else. I go to them. I lay myself down to someone in that way, and they do the same. So in a healthy romantic relationship, there's intimacy. Both people are willing to be vulnerable. Neither person ever cares about something called power. Who has more power at a given moment?
Yes. You mentioned being depending on the other person. In a healthy relationship, is it true that we also must have some independence in ourselves?
A healthy relationship, it's a mix of dependence and healthy dependence. I'll give you an example. A single person who doesn't have good relationships or is uncomfortable with relationships, one of the things you may want to do is consider getting a pet, getting a dog, for example. That teaches you through the practice of daily taking care of that animal that someone depends on you, and you actually come to depend on that person too. So dependence can be very helpful, just not depending too much.
Okay.
In this part of the video, we talked about signs you were raised by narcissistic parents. If your parents were narcissistic, you might not feel good about yourself and often find yourself in very up and down relationships. Trying too hard to be perfect and always wanting people to like you are common. Growing up without feeling loved just for being. you can make you doubt yourself and always look to others to make you feel okay.
Parents who are narcissists
Yeah.
have children, and there are a lot of consequences that come from the child being raised by two narcissists. What is one of the big red flags that you could see in a person who might have been raised with two narcissistic parents?
An adult who inherently feels like they're not good enough, who beats themselves up, who questions their own values, who has relationships that are dramatic, where people treat them badly. In 99% of those cases, did that adult, when they were young, have a parent who unconditionally loved them? Probably not, because why on earth then would they ever say at 18, 20, 25 years old, hey, I'm going to totally change the types of relationships I have. I'm used to being treated great, being valued, feeling like I count, and I'm just okay the way I am. And now I'm going to actually go into relationships where I'm treated like crap, where I don't get called back, where I have to chase them, where I have to constantly wonder if they really care about me.
Because they had narcissistic parents.
So a lot of times if someone questions their own worth, doesn't have that self-confidence, a lot of times they had a narcissistic parent. Now they could also have had other issues. Maybe they had a trauma background and whatever. One of the hallmarks of someone who was raised by a narcissist is the overachiever who is telling themselves, if I achieve this, that, and the other, then finally I'll be good enough.
In this part of the video, we talked about narcissistic parents and narcissistic children. Children brought up by parents who are narcissistic might develop similar traits. They may also find themselves drawn to partners who share these narcissistic characteristics, influenced by their childhood experiences.
Is it common for narcissistic parents to raise narcissistic children?
It's a great question. So what a lot of the literature says is kind of depressing for children who are raised by narcissists, which is that if you are raised by a narcissist, you too may take on some of those narcissistic qualities. And it makes perfect sense when you think about it, right? In a parent relationship, that's the closest relationship a child has with really anybody, and that the degree to which a child depends on a parent. So they are figuring out all kinds of things in that relationship. So it makes sense then if a parent treats a child in a certain disrespectful, dismissing, unloving, negligent way, that later in life that person would do the same thing to somebody else in a romantic relationship.
So they might behave narcissistically in a relationship, and they also might seek out somebody who is a narcissist.
Right. And think about it this way, Kyle. They should, right? That's what they were told.
That's what they know, right?
That's the narcissistic parenting program that they were taught. And they were the best little students in the world, right? So here's the thing. What is one thing that can break the cycle?
Yes.
Raised by a narcissist, you don't want to be a narcissist too. Get therapy. Get therapy, and that will help you gain some self-awareness. It doesn't need to be just therapy, though. It can be getting educated. Simply going online and doing searches for what is the effect of a parent who treats a child badly, right? So just getting educated. Could be a relationship you have with someone at the church. Could be a coach that you develop a close relationship with. But the really sad thing is, and it's just sad all around for a child who is raised by someone like that, because it's conditional. They understand from the beginning, don't get too cocky. You're not just gonna be loved. That's not a part of the deal. Now, you will be loved if you meet these various stipulations in the contract. Here's why that is important. Earlier, I was talking about the narcissist's two selves. There's the false self, the self they want everybody to believe. They even try so hard to believe themselves. And then there's their real self. What that means is, to the narcissist, image is everything. So when a parent has a child, what does it mean that child is? The child is what we call a narcissistic extension of the parent. So that child fails in school. That child doesn't live up to the image the parent wants the overall family to represent. The child will be criticized, shut out, frozen out, dismissed, disowned. It's really sad. It's really sad. But at the end of the day, it's not a tragedy as long as the person who was raised like that talks to friends, is honest about their feelings, because objective people will give them feedback. Hey, what the parenting you got, it was messed up. It wasn't right. See, the child who was raised like this, they don't have that healthy editor.
Right.
They were not allowed to be angry.
Right.
They were not allowed to be resentful.
Or screw up.
That's right, or screw up.
Do you think there are more narcissistic parents today than there were 50 years ago?
Well, in terms of generations, I would say that, we talk about millennials these days, right? The attachment, the obsession, the attachment to electronic devices. It's a very unique relationship. Notice it's the individual having a relationship with something that's not a person.
Yeah.
So I would suggest, if there are any generational differences, we may see it in decades in the future, where parents, get off your devices and actually connect with your child.
When someone's watching this and they think, I just had the realization that I likely had narcissistic parents, and they are going to seek treatment for themselves, or reach out to, like you said, friends or coaches to get honest feedback. At any point, should they go back to their parents and address it with them?
Well, again, that's a really good question, but the question gets to the root of one of the hallmarks of narcissism, which is narcissism means there will be no self-awareness, no accountability.
Right.
So I'm your narcissistic parent. I just make you feel like you need to do what I say. You need to be better. You can call me out on things I've said or done. I will never take ownership of it. I cannot allow that. Now, what's happening underneath it all psychologically is the narcissist, this is unconscious. They have fought for so long to build up these strong defenses. They can't let themselves think there's anything wrong with them. They can't even let it in. They are afraid if they acknowledge one little flaw or one thing they did wrong, that will open up the floodgates, and then they will be targeted and attacked. What's so sad is narcissists are not evil people. Narcissists, they were actually victims too. Someone taught them that in close interpersonal relationships, there is something called power. What? Like, where did that ever come from? But that exists in relationships with people with personality disorders. What does exist, of course, there are differences between parent and child. The parent is the authority, but that's different from the powerful one.
Yes.
The person in authority also has the responsibility of protecting, of setting aside their own feelings, acknowledging the differences in their child. All these things are absent in the narcissist. But what people need to remember is, just because you have a narcissistic parent doesn't mean that they are a bad or evil person. I promise you, if you look deeper at the relationship they had with their parents, it wasn't probably so great either.
Thanks for spending time with us as we talked about the tough topic of narcissistic parenting. If you've resonated with the topics discussed, consider subscribing for more valuable content on mental health and well-being. Remember, seeking support and knowledge is the first step towards healing. Take care of yourself and always remember you're not alone in this.